So if you're a taxi driver looking at becoming one, or simply looking for your next ultra reliable best car for the family, then you come to the right spot. Welcome to HDG Cars, guys, and today we'll be talking about the infamous or famous Toyota Prius, and we're going to be talking about the Mark IV and the Mark III, what you need to look out for, and some dealer secrets that we will let you know. So over the years, we have close to 1,000 Toyota Priuses. That's our speciality. We import them from Japan, bring them here, and we are going to talk about the most common faults that no one talks about. I know no video is seen on it. Everyone knows them, like the other common faults, but we're going to specifically talk about very common faults we see with cars over 200,000 miles, over 100,000 miles, close to 70,000 miles, and everywhere in between. Because when you're buying your first taxi car or your next taxi car, reliability isn't just about, is it going to be good for me? It's your livelihood. Every day you're off the road is a day you've lost money. So let's get into it. First, we'll talk about the Mark III, then we'll talk about the Mark IV. Follow me, guys. So before we talk about this Mark III Prius behind me, I just want to let you know why people buy the Prius in the first place. Ultra reliable, can do 400 to 500,000 miles easily. The CVT gearbox has very little issues, and the MPG is out of this world. However, no car's perfect, and we're going to come to it now. So when you come to the Mark III Prius, we won't talk about the design and everything. We all know that. We all know how it looks. Your granddad's probably had one. Your dad's probably had one. If you're a taxi driver, you've probably seen them or considered one. So we'll talk about the nitty gritty. One of the most common faults in the Mark III Prius is actually the headlights. The bulbs on these are notorious for going. They don't go, I'm not saying they go at, every 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles, but however, as a taxi driver, when you're doing almost 40,000 miles a year for some of you, the bulbs are a very common one. What people do to make sure that this doesn't happen, they actually upgrade these to the LED bulbs. I think they're the H7 or H6 bulbs, and that solves the problem. Now, when we come to the inside, there are a few common faults. First common fault, when drivers are driving for a long period of time, they usually have one or two positions they drive in. Either they drive like this or they drive like this. Now, if you come here, you can tell that this person has always been driving with the hand on top, and you can see the frame marks here. Now, this car has only covered 70,000 miles, and this can happen. So guys, always be aware of this. Some people put the steering wheel covers on, but depending on your driving position, there's two things you can do. Either put the steering wheel cover on, or just change the, your hand position sometimes. The main one is obviously this one. However, you can tell that this driver has previously been driving like this, and some people also actually put their nails behind it and they can chew away at the steering wheel. So that's one of the uncommon downsides of having a Prius that no one ever tells you about. Right, let's come to the back. The second thing on these ones is cleanliness. So the carpet in the back of the Prius right here is a hard wearing carpet. However, it's not stain resistant. We've noticed, especially our valeter has noticed, day in, day out, that he has to take a lot of stains out, and it takes a lot of time to do so. Now, cleanliness is close to godliness, and especially in the taxi, when you want to get 5-star bookings and reviews, you need to make sure it is uber clean. And one of the most common faults that everyone talks about is the hybrid battery. Now, the hybrid battery, even if I open this, you won't be able to see it, is actually located just about here. So right under the seats, a little bit into the inside of the boot, and there are a few common faults. Now, the first thing and the most common thing is the hybrid battery can go. Now, the reason is that the older Mark III generation from 2009 to 2016, as you can see, this one, the 66 plate, the last of the generation, has a nickel battery, whereas the new shape, the Mark III over there, has a lithium ion battery. So because of this, these can go, these can be refurbished, but we always recommend getting them replaced. Now, a replacement nowadays can cost anywhere from £550 if you're in the trade to anywhere up to £1,000. However, on average, I'd say it's anywhere between $600 and $750 if you're shopping around. There are a lot of companies that only specialize in these hybrid battery replacements, and they can also give you a 6 months warranty, a 1-year warranty, or 2-year warranty. So, although people think it's in the thousands, it's not. It's less than £1,000 to sort. Now, when we come to the front of the car, so one of the most common faults we see, and this is with generally the taxi driver customers who've done about 200,000 plus, is something over here. You could just about make it, but I'm going to get the cameraman to come closer. And where I'm pointing to right now is a valve called the EGR valve. Now, the EGR valve is an exhaust gas reflow valve. Now, what does that do? So essentially what it does is the used gases that your engine has produced, it allows it to reflow back to use some of the fuel particles again that's already in the exhausts, reflows it a few times to make the car a lot more efficient. However, one very common fault we see is that these valves get blocked up with a lot of soot and a lot of grime and a lot of dirt, and they can make the engine shake. It almost feels like your engine's knocking. So we've had a lot of customers come in, tell us, oh, my engine's knocking, I can't believe this has happened. But generally speaking, it's just the EGR valve. Now, it's relatively easy to get replaced. The part, if you get a fresh one, is about 100 to 200 pounds. And labour can be anywhere from 80 to 200 pounds again, depending who you go to. And once you do that, you've got about another 200,000 miles. So it's not a big fault, however, it's a very common fault we see, and especially if you're a taxi driver doing 40,000 miles a year, that's something you can look out for. Now, another slightly less common one, however, we see a lot of cars do have that issue, especially around the 80,000 to 120,000 mile mark, is actually these things over here. So not specifically the wipers themselves, they're about £5 to replace, it's actually the motor. So we have personally not had to replace many. However, we did at one point stock about 35 window wiper motors in stock, and we sold literally every single Toyota Prius window wiper motor within the series of 2 months. Now, the reason for that is the motor is a little bit weak, and the plastics over here do allow a little bit of water ingress, which can usually affect the plug and affect the motor over a long term. However, buying a new motor or used motor on eBay is about 30 to 50 quid, and you can probably fit it yourself or get someone to fit it for about 50 quid. So yeah, those are the two main issues that we see. Now we'll talk to you about a very uncommon issue. So guys, on YouTube, I haven't seen anyone talk to you about this at all. So we've just teleported to the garage where we get all the cars maintained, and in front of me you can see 3 Mark III Priuses. Now, if we come to this one specifically, this one has the T4 T-Spirit alloys. So these are a 17-inch alloy wheel with a thinner profile on the tires, and this unfortunately makes the ride a lot more bumpy, especially on the UK roads with all these potholes. You can feel the ride worsen significantly. So I've had loads of taxi drivers say, look, I want a T4 spec, I want the T-Spirit spec with the half leather interior, the electrics. However, could you please swap them for these alloys? So if we come over here, you can see these are the original 15-inch alloys that most base spec model Priuses come with. However, it is the taxi driver's preferred wheel of choice. Now, the reason being is if you come over here, you can see we've got a lot of a thick profile and we've got a smaller diameter, which means we've got a lot less unladen weight. So there's 2 main benefits for having it. First of all is the comfort. The comfort and the ride comfort with these alloys are significantly better than those ones over there. And the best thing for taxi drivers when they're looking at their kind of taxi business is that the CV boots, the suspension arms and the joints last a lot longer with these wheels compared to the nicer ones. I do actually prefer those ones, especially because they look a little bit nicer, look a little bit more sporty on a otherwise unsporty Toyota Prius. However, that is a very uncommon thing that no one talks about and is something we see day in, day out. And then Toyota released the Mark IV Prius. And this is where you see the Kaizen philosophy of Toyota really come in hand. Better fuel economy, better looks, more refined, quieter, and overall better quality. However, that doesn't mean that this car is perfect. So follow me. So under the bonnet, we still have a upgraded version of the 2ZR FXE 1.8 hybrid engine, ultra reliable, no issues on the main block. However, when we come over to this blue thing here, and in some cars black, we have this 12-volt battery. Now, the issue with this 12-volt battery, it is still a little bit weak for the car. The only job for this battery is actually just to turn the car on in the morning. However, in our experience, even though you'll get a 3 years warranty with the battery whenever you buy them from Yuasa or the likes of that, you still have some issues. So starting issues, especially in the cold winters of the UK, that's where this battery can be a little bit weak and may need a jump start. Again, it's not a very big issue. There are brands out there where you can get a slightly stronger battery to usurp this issue. However, that is something to keep in mind. Now, also when we come over here, this is something that a lot of Toyota Prius owners neglect. General checks. So when we come to the engine, always double check your coolant. These cars do sometimes suffer with slight coolant issues, especially in the UK where weather can be from one extreme to the other. 1 minute it could be sunny, next minute it could be raining. So sometimes these pipes over here can leak and it's not noticeable. However, you can notice it when this goes down. A lot of people also make the accidental mistake of topping this up, which although yes, it is technically coolant, it's not for the actual vehicle, well, the actual radiator. This is actually for the inverter and the hybrid system. So a lot of people make the mistake of not researching about the car and messing about with the inverter coolant and or messing about with the ECU or the fuse plug for the inverter. Guys, whenever you're looking at these cars, make sure you are coming over to the driver's side of the vehicle and ensuring that the coolant is topped up, the oil's tip and top, and that the overall car hasn't got any issues. Right, another issue that I haven't seen anyone really talk about is actually tyres. Now, when we come down here, we can see that these tyres are 195, 65, 15, and that is the correct size for the car. I've seen a lot of people put slightly bigger tyres on and assuming that the wear and tear is going to be less. However, we always recommend putting on the correct size tyres with the correct treads, as this will really affect the car. This car is a lot lighter than the Mark III, so even different tyres can make a huge impact on your MPG. We've seen a difference of up to 10 MPG depending on what tyres you have on. So don't neglect that when you're buying the car. So, unfortunately, although Kaizen and the Toyota philosophy is always about ever improvement, they haven't improved the steering wheel. So although they've got an upgraded steering wheel, if we come a bit closer, you can still see that because of the material they use and the way people hold the car, you still get a lot of crease and a lot of rips in the steering wheel. Again, the only way to solve that is either keep changing your driving position here and there, or just put a small steering wheel cover on. Probably the best solution. Another thing as well, the quality of the interior is a little bit worse actually. They use different types of plastic and it can be a little bit creaky sometimes, which is a little bit annoying on long journeys. You can sometimes hear it. Another issue, which is just a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, is that people always keep opening these and then underneath they fill it up with loads and loads of stuff. Obviously, like, you know, bits and bobs. It already has compartments for its necessary stuff, like the puncture kit, the pump, but we see people put a lot of other stuff in here. And what happens over time, this is a thin plastic cover. This can break. And if it does break, which is a common fault on these, it is a little bit expensive to replace. So just be careful, guys, when you're putting things underneath here, because this is a tiny bit more flimsy compared to the previous Mark III generation. They can break and it's a little bit expensive to replace. And the last thing I'd look at when buying these cars is the brakes. Now, because this vehicle does have regenerative braking, it doesn't mean that the brakes last forever. So always make sure your brakes are lubricated in the calipers, make sure your brake pads are up to spec, and make sure that you stay on top of maintenance. Now, coming to the maintenance part, this is the most important part. Use the correct oil, guys. I see a lot of people just putting the cheap 5W30 in and just putting cheap oil parts just because they want to get back on the road. Guys, slightly better parts, either from Toyota or manufacturer, will cost you 20 to 30 pounds more usually and will allow your car to feel a lot better. A lot of people recommend putting in 5W30 fully synthetic in this. I disagree. The manufacturer recommended is 0W20, which I recommend to put in. And guys, like I said, just go to Toyota. It will cost you a couple quid more to put the original OEM filters, and it will just make your car feel a lot smoother and last a lot longer. And that will be the difference between your car going from only 200,000 miles, only in this scenario being Toyota, to up to 500,000 miles. We have one customer who's got almost 800,000 miles on the original engine, original gearbox, and original hybrid battery. And they've done that by maintaining the car correctly. Right, guys, let's summarize it. So the Mark III, which you can see over there behind me, is an absolute legend, especially in the taxi game. And the upgraded version, which is the Mark IV, is also the new top dog. So guys, would I recommend buying the Toyota Prius? Absolutely. Obviously I'm going to say that. I'm biased. This is HDG Cars. I am the Prius specialist. However, jokes aside, it is for a very good reason, the most popular taxi car and one of the most popular cars in the UK overall. Now, between the Mark III and the Mark IV, I would always personally go for the Mark IV. The Mark III is an absolute best decision if you're on a little bit of a lower budget. However, if budget permits, the Mark IV is probably the best all-rounder. Ultra MPG, I've seen people get up to even 100 MPG if they're careful. Light aluminium body, which just makes the car feel a lot better. They've really improved on a lot of the things that the Mark III lacked in. And overall, as long as you keep on top of the things I've said to you, you shouldn't have an issue. So guys, next time you're thinking about buying a hybrid Prius, think about HDG Cars. I hope this has been useful information for you. Guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or any video ideas that you want to see, especially coming from someone who's been in the hybrid industry, or hybrid vehicle industry for over 10 years. Give us a shout. Our number's in the bio. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias. And again, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.